August 14th, I told you, that should be yours. And look where it sits, right in G.A.R. Right where it belongs.
Left guard, number 60, Bill. At center, number 51, Superguard. The left guard, number 55, Mike Irving. The right tackle, number 67, Joe Hartsey. Alternating at one end will be number 2, Lashley, and number 19, McConney. Quarterbacking the Jim Green will be number 8, Matter. The fullback, number 24, Dave Herman. Fullback, number 33, Hugh Blankenry. On the wingback, was number 23, Tim. Dressing was coached by Mr. Charlie Fick. He is assisted by Mr. Fred Klein, Mr. John Watson, Mr. Greg Stipenach, Mr. Richard McElroy, Mr. Hans Gabriel, Mr. Kevin Sabicki, Mr. George Good, and Mr. Dino Galella.
It's been almost 35 years as I walk out my front door in Warrior Nation and drive this drive. It's a little different. I go over a different bridge. I drive down River Street. I start getting these feelings in my stomach. I see South Street. I turn onto South Street.
On the road, I've been away for far too long.
The bridge looks a little different, sounds a little different.
Back home, I hear the west winds calling.
I get to the red light
My name,
and I see the hill.
they telling me to
The
hit
hill
your
we all
way.
walked. We danced, we
Down your
cheered,
road and past your
we
gate.
laughed.
Keep your eyes on the horizon.
As I got closer to the school,
I was looking to belong when I'd already found my
those memories are coming back. Those memories that we all had.
Won't be long. I'm there before the setting sun.
And I want to take you guys with
fall
me.
into my arms, the place I call my home.
Let's go home.
I was looking to belong when I already found my home.
Hey, Charlie! Charlie! Hey, Charlie!
I was looking to belong when I'd already known that you would be there when the rains are gone. Like a light in the night, you will always be my home.
Hi, I'm Charlie Fick.
Or say something. Come on, come here.
Keep that on the
Say this.
My father just did that.
Hey, Charlie. Charlie.
Okay, I'm turning around. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Is Charlie in there?
Boy, I tell you what, is that what I look like? I'm gonna get out of this business.
Number 5.
started my athletic career as a player when I was born in Wilkes-Barre, of course, and I lived on Davis Place, small dead-end street, and everybody knows about dead-enders, what kind of kids they are. We had about 5 or 6 of us that we played sports year-round. If it was baseball season, we played baseball. If it was basketball, we played basketball. And when it was football season, that was probably the best season of all, because we used to sneak into Myers Stadium and play football in there until the custodians chased us out. And from high school, or in high school, I went to Myers High School. I played 3 sports for a while, and then I eliminated one. But I played football starting in 8th grade. I played basketball, and I also was a baseball player. I played football and baseball up until my senior year. Basketball I sort of had to give up on, because after a while I was no good at basketball, and what I did, I kept going out because I wanted to keep my legs in shape between football season and baseball season. I played in football all the way up to my senior year. I played linebacker and fullback, and in baseball I was a third baseman. I was a pitcher. In fact, my senior year in baseball, I pitched every single game, and yet when the All-Star team came out, I made third base as an All-Star. But that was a little funny. The years and the accolades that I had back then, just amazed me. Some of the honors I got, some of the All-Star teams I made, and so on. And then after I did graduate, my first year I went to college, I went to Susquehanna University, and I played football and baseball down there. In fact, I wound up playing against the hometown school of Wilkes College, which I eventually went back to, because in 1966 I transferred back to Wilkes, and I played football and baseball back there for 3 years. No wrestling, no basketball or anything in between. I just played football. I started off as a running back, as a fullback, and I wound up being a defensive tackle because I put on a few pounds. And then after I wound up graduating from Wilkes, I needed a job. I had gotten married, and I had a little boy on the way, and we moved to Ohio because I needed a job relatively quickly. So we moved out to Ohio, where my uncles were, and they were able to get me a job as a teacher, even though I had no student teaching or anything else. I didn't plan on being a teacher, but I wound up doing it. And at that same time, I not only was a teacher out there, but I was also a football coach, junior high level. I was a basketball coach in junior high level, and also a track coach at a varsity level. I told you how much I didn't like basketball, but I had to do it. And the same thing with track. I knew nothing about it. I can't run fast. I can't jump high. I can't throw a javelin that far or anything else. But I was a coach there, and I enjoyed my time. I spent 2 years out there in a place called Elyria, Ohio, which is about 40 miles west of Cleveland. And I enjoyed my experiences out there. And my wife was a little homesick and everything else, so I kept applying back in Wilkes-Barre to try to get a job back here. And lo and behold, in the spring of 1972, I got appointed back here in Wilkes-Barre as a teacher and a coach at G.A.R. High School. And we moved back shortly thereafter. And the word coach didn't come till it was instilled in me to become a coach. In fact, my first coaching responsibility was back when I was about 17 years old. I coached a Teenage Leagues baseball team down at St. Teresa's in Wilkes-Barre, in the old Minor Park. A guy named Glenn Jones gave me that responsibility. And from there, I also, when I went on to really get some good coaching experiences, I had the unique ability at that time to have 3 different head football coaches in my sophomore, junior, and senior year. My sophomore year, I had Jack Jones. He, I call him Coach Jack Jones. He stayed there 1 year with me, my sophomore year, and then went on. He coached at Temple University, so you know how good he was. The next year, the head coach was one of Jack Jones' assistants, Bob Gimbel. He again stayed 1 year, and after my junior year, he left and he went down to Williamsport High School as the athletic director and the head football coach. And finally, my senior year, I had a guy named Jake Pyatt. He was a graduate of Myers High School, East Stroudsburg University, became the Secretary of Education in the state of New Jersey. And I learned a lot from him, and the vim and vigor that he professed was fantastic. And then from there, after high school, I went to college, and I spent 1 year down at Susquehanna University. And that year, I spent as a football player and a baseball player under a guy by the name of Jim Garrett. The name Garrett might sound familiar because his son Jason was the head football coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I remember when Jason was born, I was down in Selinsgrove near Susquehanna, and so I had him, and then I transferred up to Wilkes, and I played under the legendary coach at Wilkes by the name of Raleigh Schmidt. Not only did he coach football, but he also coached baseball as well. And then my senior year in baseball, I not only had a different head coach there too, but I had a guy by the name of Gene Domzalski. He used to play AAA baseball for the New York Yankees, so I had some real good tutelage all the way through. So going back to my sophomore year, junior year, senior year in high school, I had 3 different head coaches. I learned more. In college, I had Jim Garrett and I had Raleigh Schmidt, and along with other fine assistant coaches at the same time. And it was a good background, and that's why I said the coaching end of it came out, because I learned so much from each and every one of them. I was also able to, believe it or not, there's a side story with Jack Jones my sophomore year. He coached down at Temple for a few years, and then lo and behold, he comes back and he is the head football coach of Dallas High School. And guess who had a coach against him? And that was me. So I'm coaching against my coach that I revered through my sophomore year in high school. And also my junior year coach, Bob Gimbel, he was a referee, and he lived down in Williamsport, but he used to be a referee, and he wouldn't do any games down there, but he'd come up and do games for Lake Lehman and games for for Dallas. And lo and behold, I had him in a few of the ball games and everything else, and he was a good official and everything else, and he was the kind of guy that I patterned everything after as well. So I've had a lot of good mentors all the way through. And then when I got back here finally to Wilkes-Barre, when I became the assistant football coach and the head baseball coach, I had the opportunity of being an assistant coach to one of the legendary football coaches in the area by the name of John Rollins. And he was a great mentor, and he taught me very, very much about the game. And also from there, then when I became the head coach in 1980, I was not only the head football coach, but I was also the head baseball coach. And I had a unique situation where I won the Division II championship in football, and my team won a Division II championship in baseball in the same year. And I was lucky enough, I was voted the Sunday Independent Coach of the Year. And that's quite an honor for me, really for anybody. But that's my coaching background, where it all came from. I started off with Glenn Jones and then all the way up through all my high school coaches, and also into my college coaches and all the assistant coaches as well. And me as becoming a head coach, I could draw on all the good points that I learned from all these guys. Everybody has good points and bad points, and in this case right here, I got a lot of good techniques and everything else off these guys. How to handle assistant coaches, how to pick assistant coaches, and just how to manage football games or baseball games, whatever it might be. And probably one of the big assets that I had once I became the head coach, there was a gentleman by the name of Dino Galella, a good friend of mine. He wasn't at the time, but he was a good friend of mine. He was a G.A.R. graduate, and I was a Myers graduate. But we became friends throughout the year, through coaching and everything else. When I was an assistant coach and so on, I'd see him. He was at Coughlin for a while. He was at Myers for a while, and I just saw how his attitude and how enthusiastic he was about the game itself. And when I became the head coach at G.A.R., the first person I called was Dino, and he's true and blue a G.A.R. boy, and yet he coached at Coughlin and Myers as well. He couldn't wait to get back to G.A.R. In fact, he had actually signed himself out of the hospital. He was in the hospital for some illness or something. He signed himself out so he could be at our first meeting and so on. So that's the kind of person that he was, and the guy's still the same way. But I've had a lot of good assistant coaches besides him. I had Bobby Rushton, Fred Klein, Greg Skrapnak. I had a whole bunch of good guys that I can't name them all because I've just had so many, but they've all been good.
Hey guys, this is what it's all about. All right, you guys work for it, you deserve it, and I'm really sorry to see some of you guys go. Congratulations.
Right in here to me.
This is one time where 3 equals 2. 3 years of hard work, 2 weeks of competition in the Eastern Conference playoffs equals this. Great job. Great job by everybody. Super effort. Woohoo! All right, seniors. There's Phil. We're keeping these daggone drummers
So Dino, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question that I personally would like to know. My dad calls you his best friend. Where did it all start?
Well, it started when I came here. I was coaching at Coughlin, and your dad called me up and asked me if I wanted to come up and coach the freshman team up at G.A.R. And I told him, not really. I won't come up to coach the freshman team because I had the opportunity to coach the varsity at Coughlin that year coming. So I said no. I said if I was a varsity coach, I'd come, but not as a freshman coach because I was going to take that step up at Coughlin. And he called me back and said, will you come back and come up as a varsity coach? I said, yeah, I'll come. And that's where it started. And it's a lot more than football to become best friends. You know what I mean? We shared so much together. Football was the start of it all, but you get to know somebody when you see them every day and you see how they handle adversity and how they handle success. And we had a lot of adversity and a lot of success. Unfortunately, sometimes the adversity you remember more, whether it's losing or being criticized or having things not go your way. I know it bothered us that after the first couple of years, we had trouble getting kids out for football. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't anything that we did. I don't think it was our personalities that turned kids off. It was just the fact that the numbers weren't there anymore. And that was a hard thing to get through. But it was more than football. It was, we shared a lot of history together with our families. I think more of your dad, not as a coach, but as a friend, because of what we went through as families. We learned so much from each other raising our kids. And he was like a model for me because he handled things so well. I don't think the thing that people appreciate much is the pain your dad was in with that gout. Oh. And we never took a day off from practice because he had the gout. And he suffered with it. And it takes a great deal of courage to go out there every day knowing you're going to be in that kind of pain and not to cheat those kids. Those kids were never cheated. We gave them a full day of practice, and we worked hard, and we let nothing stand in our way, whether it was a family problem or an issue that we were having at home, and we had them, and I certainly had my own personal issues during the days I coached with your dad, and he had the pain and the blood pressure and all the things that you go through, but you still have a family to take care of, and you still have your problems that occur not only on the football field, but at the house, in school. I don't know if there's a day that went by there wasn't something going on in school that affected us because we were coaching at the time
Right.
with one of our kids in school. This isn't an easy place to coach. It was the best place to coach. I've been at all 3 high schools, but it wasn't the easiest place. But these kids are tough kids, and they give you what they got because they don't have much.
Right.
And I think your father and I identified with them because we didn't have much growing up either. So, and that's how we got close and close and close, because you share those things together, the wins, the losses, the good times, the bad times, the hard times. And it makes you better people. But I mean, I've learned so much from your dad about raising my own kids, raising my own family, hanging in there when things get tough, health-wise. I mean, he was a pillar of strength. He went through a lot, and I don't really think a lot of people appreciate what he went through and still coached. And we never cheated those kids. One thing, we always worked hard, and we never left the practice field early because he had the gout or he had some problems with his blood pressure or anything else. We worked hard, and we continued to work hard, and we all wanted the same thing. We all wanted to win and to get what we had to do to make those kids be the best they can be, not only on a football field, but as a man and a person too. It's
Right.
more than just getting them to be how good they can be in football. It's how good they can be in life. And I think your dad was a model for them too, because things aren't easy.
Hey, Charlie. I can still remember John Rowlands telling me years ago that you were joining our coaching staff. And what an addition it was. Great teams, great kids. And it was my distinct pleasure to work with you and learn so much from you. I remember all those great times we had, and so many laughs, so many tears, but so much fun overall. And what a great experience it was. And as great a coach as you were, Charlie, you were more than that to G.A.R. I remember my daughter Shannon coming home from Syracuse University after her first year, telling me how easy her math class was. It was like a review from your class her senior year. So you were also a great teacher, and certainly made an impression on so many kids in that venue as well. But more importantly, Charlie, after all these years, through good times and bad times, to our retirement and everything that's happened since then, you were and always will be a very good friend, and that to me is the most important thing of all. So on behalf of Marianne and myself, we wish you a happy birthday, a Merry Christmas, and hope you enjoy your wonderful family and your well-deserved legacy at G.A.R. Stay well, my friend.
And playing football, and I also think I'm a baseball player, because everybody makes the All-Stars when you're in Little League. I'm a baseball player, and this is where I got my first dose of Coach Fick saying, called me in one day. I'll never forget it. He calls me in, and with Coach Peter, who's the baseball coach at the time, because your dad was the coach.
Yep.
They switched.
Yep.
And said, look, Tony, you're not a baseball player. I said, what? Go out for track. Coach Peoples wanted me, Coach Moran, they were the track coaches, come out and throw. So I said, okay, I'll go out for track. So, they were very influential in having kids make changes for the right reasons. And Coach Fick was very influential from that day on. He was very influential in my life, in the decisions I made, playing football, going out for track, and wanting to be a football coach as well as a teacher. And he always managed, Coach Fick always managed, as I went through high school. We won. We really had a great year my junior year. My senior year was not very good. We lost a lot of close games, but it is what it is. We were like 2-8-1. We lost a lot of games by a touchdown or whatever, but you still lose, you lose. And he wasn't used to that. Coach Galella wasn't used to that. And it was a real hard year. But he treated everyone the same, win or lose. Treated us all the same. He treated us well. He always was respectful of the fact we played football and we worked hard for him, and he worked hard for us, and his staff. But his staff was, I think, where you got to give a head coach credit. He had assembled a really great staff. Getting Coach Galella, having guys like Bobby Rushton and Ralph Hahn to influence young kids to come out, Fred Klein, Richie Chaconis to coach the line,
and some other guys just around there, like George Good and Greg Mr. Skrepnak.
Yeah.
Just having those guys around. Tom Ojieski was there for a while.
It always seemed like there was more coaches on the field than there was players
They
at
were
times.
just great guys to have there. Paul Brown, and just bringing guys back that played at G.A.R. He knew that would feed into the program and help get kids out and make them better, because it's tradition. And he always had a good staff around him. I think that was a lot of the reason he had a lot of great success, because he knew building the program was important and having the right people around him was important. And that's why he went out and got who we got. And so I'm fortunate enough to do well. I mature into a decent football player. I get a scholarship to go to Colgate, which again, he sat me down and said, forget all this other stuff. There are walk-on offers, other schools. He goes, it's the right fit for you. And it was the right fit for me, because when I got there, I made the varsity team as a freshman. And I to this day, and I tell everybody the same story, I made the team because when I got there, the practices were so much easier than the practices at G.A.R. They were so...
Because there's more kids involved, right?
Yeah. It's just easier. It just wasn't as... Like, our practices here, we were intense. Colgate, they were intense, but you just didn't beat each other up as much. Let me put it that way. We hit. G.A.R., we hit. And then the next thing that made it more a better place for me to go was they played the defense Coach Fick played, like the one he taught us. I knew the defense. I knew how to play defensive tackle. I knew the reads, the schemes, and everything, where some of the younger guys had no idea. They're coming from a 50 defense, which was prevalent around the country at that time. And a lot of guys were nose guards or outside guys, 5 techs, and here I am. I know how to read the guard. I know how to take it on. I know how to do that. And that comes from Coach Fick, Coach Klein, and all the coaches that were there helping us learn the defense. So getting to college and knowing how to play football and how to do the drills and et cetera was very beneficial to me, because you'd be surprised how many kids when you get to college at that time, I don't know how it is now, were not really well schooled in the game of football. I felt leaving G.A.R. I was well schooled in the game of football. And I credit your dad and the staff for that. And I think that's what gave me success in my 4 years in college. So I get to college, and college goes fast. It's over. I say, Coach, I want to teach. I want to coach. You have any room for me on your staff? And I was fortunate enough to have a spot on the freshman staff, and I coached there for quite a while. That was in like 88, 89, and 89 we had a fantastic year.
That was my senior year.
It was your senior year, and we were just lights out. We had speed. We had guys that could run. We had Tana could throw. We had Tyrone, Maui, Burmer, and Twyman, all those guys. Rico. I think Coach Weidlich was one of our linemen. Dr. Makaravich was on that team, and Tokash and Mirren. So we had a lot of, I can't name them all right now, but a lot of really fantastic players on that team, and we did really well. We won the Eastern Conference, and it was a great success. But
tell me about that. What happens after we win an Eastern Conference championship?
Well, we parade. And we party. I mean, it's nothing's no secrets. We had a blast. It was a great weekend.
Like the memories. Like I always bring up, that you drop you off at the front of the bridge, and it's a parade. Like you have neighbors out and just the people cheering and walking down to the school.
Oh, the homes back then were decorated.
Yeah.
Right through.
Yeah.
I mean, they just decorated the homes. You always looked for the house with your number on it, because it didn't have to be your parents' house. It could be anybody's house. They had all your numbers, the linemen or whatever.
That was, what was it, Miss Rose right across the street? She used to have the football players and
right down the road.
Yeah.
And it might have been Blackwell's. But she did every week. She just loved G.A.R.
I really want to talk about the G.A.R. football players, how tough they are. You know, people don't realize a lot of the things they had to go through just to even consider playing. A lot of them, I lost a number of players because they had to get a job because their mom and dad were out of work, or their dad had passed away, and they had to get a different, you know, they had to do something else. And I understood that, and I try to make as many, you know, ways for them to still be part of the team and so on. But these kids, they were just so tough. And some of the situations that they were in, I remember I would say from 72 to like 82 or 83, we practiced right behind the high school. And the type of field that was, it was all cinders. And we used to, every day, we used to walk around and pick up broken bottles and glass and stones and everything else, and put all that stuff off to the side. And then we used to try to water the field down. We had a little bit of a hose. And these kids, but they didn't care. They didn't know any different. That was them. You know, and they used to, you know, they used to fight during the games. They used to fight, but mainly they used to fight amongst themselves, which was good. You know, they really got on each other. If some guy was you know, lacking in, you know, in what he was supposed to be doing, they got on his butt a little bit, and next thing you know, pushing came to shove, and we had some doozies, but it was good. It didn't hurt. It showed the grit that they really had. Some of the things they had to put up with, you know, in their households, in their everyday life, and you know, living on a hill like that, you know, you figure they're walking up and down those hills all the time. In fact, once I started to be the head coach down at, we used to walk down to Stanton Street. It used to be almost a mile. Well, they had to walk to practice in their uniforms and back again after practice in their uniforms. So we'd practice on the Stanton Street field down there. It's the closest we could get. But it took a long time for everybody to understand that that's just part of G.A.R. football. If you wanted to play, this is what you have to do. You have to, you know, get out of the locker room, you and your buddies, and walk up. And I had to actually, you know, design a certain path that they could follow, because you got to watch them. You know, kids will be kids and be out in the street and everything else. You know, I made it a point that I had assistant coaches posted to make sure they went the right way all the time, so they didn't make a hazard of walking in the streets or hitting a car or getting hit by a car or whatever. And that was a big thing, because I know once we had to do it. And I tell you, I coached a unicorn team. We practiced up there for a while, and it's like these kids can't believe you guys had to walk every single day. I said, yes, we did. I said, you know, you guys were able to practice. You know, you other guys, you were able to practice on your home field. We didn't. We had to take a bus to get to our game. You know, we had to go from G.A.R. down to the Myers Stadium. That was our closest bus ride that we had. It was a couple miles and everything else. And after the game was over, we had to get back on a bus and go back up to G.A.R. again. So it was quite an experience. But these kids, I'm telling you, they're rough and tumble type kids. And there's a lot of times, believe it or not, you know, you talk about G.A.R. grit and so on, but you can talk about, you know, a lot of times these kids did not have the opportunity to just be on offense or just be on defense. There was one year when we had 19 kids on a team. I couldn't even hold a scrimmage. I had to use cones as, you know, defensive linemen or defensive backs or whatever, and we do it that way. But the trouble is the kids adapted, and guess what? We won a championship that year because they came together and they played so hard, and they would not, you know, give up. And that's the big thing. My big saying is, the harder you work, the harder it is to give up.
One of the greatest things that I could remember as a coach, and this is being an assistant coach with Coach Fick, we went up to Hazleton with 19 guys. And Hazleton had all these numbers of, you know, 50, 60 kids on the sidelines. And we ended up beating them. You know what I mean? Like, having the opportunity to play for Coach Fick gave me, you could challenge the world. Nothing's bigger or better than you. Nothing's tougher or stronger than you. As long as you have the will and the audacity to go out and do the best you possibly can do, good things are always going to come. And you know, I think that's been instilled in us from Coach Fick, no matter what we do in life. And we always, when things are tough, you always refer back to, hey, you know, remember what your coach said, and his name always, he always comes up, and Coach Fick, thank you. Your name is lodged in my head probably till the day I die, and I couldn't be more thankful for everything that you've done for me. It's football has been a long road for me. I started when I was 8 years old. Dino Galella was coaching the Packers at that time, and we were a feeder into the G.A.R. football program. I started at 8. You were supposed to be 9 at that time, but I guess I forced some numbers and allowed me to play when I was 8 years old, and it went for all the way through my senior year in high school. And again, I learned so much from the game of football and some great people, and you're probably the one on top, and has taught me so much in life, and I thank you for everything you've done.
A lot of teams were afraid after a while. Once they saw how we hit and how we played the game, was a big, just a big plus for us. But I'm saying we had 19 kids on the team one year, we had 21 another year, but we're winning championships because not only did you have to know, if you're a center, you have to know the guard positions. If you're a guard, you have to know the tackles. And I do all that stuff before the game with my assistant coaches. Well, if this guy goes down, who's going to replace him? And we had that script down because we had to, because it happened a lot. But there's so many kids that that epitomize how tough G.A.R. was with the kids. This one kid named Dave Morgan, God rest his soul, he passed away, but he might have weighed about 145 or 150 pounds, if he even weighed that. And as a defensive end for us, because that's all we had. And he did probably the best bang-up job I've ever seen with for a defensive end. He just kept moving. He kept, some of these big fullbacks were hitting him, knocking him on his butt, but he could back up and he'd go after him, and he wouldn't stop until that whistle blew. And sometimes he didn't even wait, even after the whistle blew, he kept going because he was just so infuriated. But he just showed the grit that the G.A.R. players had. And I have so many of those guys, but that one just sticks out in my mind.
Hello, my name is Matthew Fick. I played football at G.A.R. from 1994 until I graduated in 2000. I was number 21 and I was a wing. Mediocre as hell. Alright, so every day, it didn't matter if you were in 7th grade or a senior in high school. You had to take the walk down to Stanton Street. And it was rough. It didn't matter if it was August in the blazing heat or October and it was freezing cold in the morning. You had to get there, and it didn't matter if you had detention. It didn't matter anything. You knew what time practice started. Don't be late. You better be there. And as we walked down there during games from 7th or 9th grade as freshmen, especially when we were doing really well, the neighborhood would come out and cheer us on. Let's go Grenadiers, beat those Mohawks, beat those Warriors, beat whoever. They'd come out and cheer us on, and it was pretty amazing. And a lot of times, dude, it was really rough having to walk down there, and just knowing that the walk was terrible. But then you had, 2.5, 3 hours of hell to go through, and then you got to walk back. Then you got to get in the shower, and then you got to watch films. So you're there till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night every single day, Monday through Thursday if you had a Friday game. Monday through Friday and Saturday game. So it didn't matter. 5 to 6 days a week, you're down there taking that walk, and it was rough, and it was 100% worth it at the end of the day. So there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, walking down and knowing what you're going to go through. So, but that's what G.A.R. football was about. It's been 25 years since I walked through these gates. The chalk lines are long gone, but the memories remain fresh in my head. 25 years later, you realize they were right. I know, I speak for hundreds of players that would love to go back just for one day, look through that face mask, bite down on that mouthpiece, and bang heads just one more time. The first good rain of the year, it didn't matter if it was a thunderstorm or whatever. We couldn't wait. Well, not we. As one year, you couldn't wait. But if you were a sophomore, you were screwed. because the juniors and seniors were going to drag you through the mud as an initiation. They were going to kick mud in your face, put mud down your pants, do whatever they wanted to, because it was a welcome to the team. Welcome to, senior football. It was just, that's what it was, man. Varsity football was a big deal, and, literally getting dragged through the mud. It was like a rite of passage. And the coaches would leave, kids would do it, and we'd meet back at the locker room, shower up, sit down and watch some films. Let's go, kids. I mean, there was a lot of things. I played, I think my 10th grade year, I played JV, and I was a quarterback, and the only thing good I was doing at quarterback was handing the ball off, because I was throwing interceptions left and right. I mean, I'm 5'6", I can't see over the line, I'm just winging the ball. One time, I threw my dirty jersey into the laundry and it got picked off and ran in for a touchdown. That's how lousy I was as a quarterback.
A.J. Kowalczyk, class of 1984, tight end, defensive end, number 83, and I played under Coach Fick 1981 through 1983. My story didn't begin until 8th grade. I was the biggest kid in a junior high, but my mother never let me play football. Played only 1 year Heights Packers, 8th grade. I missed the last 4 games. I couldn't make weight. The weight limit was 132.5 back then, and by the last game of the year I was 160. So I spent a lot of time in the steam room at the Odyssey trying to lose weight under Coach Klein. So then when I got into G.A.R. football in 9th grade, I hurt my knee and I missed the whole preseason. I had a torn MCL. I was in a cast for 6 months. And my first practice was my first game at Wilkes-Barre Township as a freshman, and I started right guard. And that was the start of my G.A.R. football career under Coach Hahn. And I fell in love with the program. We used to go to practice early to watch the varsity practice before our junior high practice started, or freshman practice, I should say, before our freshman practice started at, I think we started at 5 o'clock in those days. And one memory I always have as a 9th grader is watching goal line offense and defense, because it was always down by the shed. And, as a freshman player, you'd stand there getting ready to run your 2 laps around the Stanton Street field. And I remember that, as a 9th grader, saying, oh my God, these kids are huge. They're hitting like steam trains. I can never even imagine being in that, on that field at that time. I just remember the crack in the helmets and the shoulder pads on how big these guys were. And that's something that's still in my head today, as a young freshman at G.A.R. Sophomore year, I worked out real hard, but I was kind of on the smaller side. I was 6'1", 200 pounds, 210 back as a sophomore. I earned myself on the field that year one way, and I think I started 6 games tight end and 5 games defensive end, depending, I think, what team we played and the types of defenses that Coach Fick ran. So that was an accomplishment for me at a young age. Learned a lot as a sophomore. We won some big games, we lost a couple of big games. But what really is in my chaw till today is we were 7-3 going into Myers game. Myers was 6-4, we were 7-3, and all we had to do was win that game to get into the Eastern Conference playoffs. And I think that would have been the first year for Coach Fick making the Eastern Conference, because it was a very new playoff system. And then Myers beat us. I think it was 21-0, or no, excuse me, 21-14 or something. And we lost that big game, and that created a 3-way tie between Myers, G.A.R, and Dallas. And I think Coach Fick had a pick out of straws that after the game. And I remember he came onto the bus and said, we didn't make it. It was a 3-way tie, and I think Myers, Coach Gorham picked the biggest straw. So Myers went to Eastern Conference, and we went home at 7-4. So that was my sophomore year. That led into a really big off season with us. We had just about everybody coming back. Our star players, offensive line, had a lot of experience, and then that led into my junior year, which was 1982-83, and that was our championship season. We were picked, as a front runner early on. We were undefeated going into the Wyoming. We were undefeated going into the Pittston game, and I think we were 6-0. Pittston was 6-0, and we actually lost that game in the second half. We were up 21-14 halftime. We lost 26-21. Second half was filled with some fumbles, and they made some big plays. It was actually an immaculate reception that game where the Pittston receiver, the ball was batted up by our secondary, and the Pittston receiver came by and scooped it just before it hit the ground, and he ran 60 yards for a touchdown, and that's pretty much what beat us. But that's my junior season, 1982, was the highlight of my career. We ended up going 10-1 in regular season. We shut out 3 powerhouses that year: Valley West, Wyoming area, and Coughlin. And that Pittston area loss kind of helped us, become the team that we were. We went in Eastern Conference playoffs, and Coach Fick, he actually got riled up by the Hornets. Honesdale was a powerhouse from the northern tier, and we were up 35-0, and I think they kept in their starters, scored 2 touchdowns on our second and third teams, and Charlie brought us back in. And then the first play from scrimmage, we scored, I think, 65 yards on a run play to either Mack or Tolbert. And then finally that coach took his players off the field and put his second string in. And then we went on to win the Eastern Conference Championship 35-0 against Grant Prep. And we were the first Wilkes-Barre team to do that. And then that whole episode after the game with the parade we had a beautiful parade over the bridge, and the band and the cheerleaders and the parents and players, and the news was there. It was beautiful. So that's the highlight of my junior year.
So many families that I know that really appreciated what we were doing for the kids, just keeping them one off the streets, out of gangs, out of this, out of that, and everything else. And they were happy that we were doing that for them, and they showed the support for us. There's always going to be a few. And once I got done coaching, once I retired, everybody said, "Well, do you miss football?" I said, "Less and less each day," because the more I think about how a lot of times the parents really get involved way too much, and all these stories and all this social media and so on. Back then we didn't have that. We didn't have anything like. We had the parents were behind us 100%, if not more. And at the end of the year, we always had a nice banquet and everything else. And we didn't give out any kind of awards for just for participating. We had something like the sophomores all got sweat hoods, the juniors got this, the seniors got their picture from Parents' Day, and they got their Letterman's jackets and so on. So that was all done, and that was all done by a few booster parents is actually who did it. So, that whole family, because that's actually the way I look at it. Me being a teacher up at G.A.R, you see a lot of these substitute teachers come in, and they are scared to death to come to G.A.R because they've heard how rough and tumble these kids are. And by the time they leave at the end of the day, I said, "I told you." I said, "This is the best kept secret in the city of Wilkes-Barre. They're good kids. They'll listen. You show them respect, they'll give you respect, and so on." So that's the big thing about G.A.R. They're rough and tumble, and yet they will listen because they know they've been there before.
Coach Fick, I just wanted to say thank you as I reflect upon all the successes that you've had. I just want you to know the impact that you've had on my life. Very few people pass through a person's life that are influential outside of family. You certainly were one of those people in my mind. You taught me integrity, you taught me toughness, you taught me most of all when you get knocked down to get back up. That was a phrase that so many of, I'm sure, the fellow players have heard from you. And I would just say that it's been an honor to play for you. It's been an honor to get to know you. I have tremendous respect for you. Whether you were in the classroom teaching me, or you were in the locker room or on the football field, you always had my respect, and you had the respect of so many of my teammates and friends. And as you know, many of us should have been juvenile delinquents, or we were certainly on the cusp of being juvenile delinquents. And you were somehow able to hold everybody together. So thank you again for everything you've done for me as a human being, as a lawyer, as a father. I really appreciate it. All the best.
Throughout the years that I was the football, whether it be head or assistant football coach, I started to coach at G.A.R. in 1972 with football and baseball, and I wound up retiring after the 1999 season. So I was there for quite a while. I got a chance for a lot of good players to pass through, and probably the one that strikes me the most was a guy named George Suda, S-U-D-A. Fantastic football player. I mean, he could do everything. I'm not just talking football. I'm talking he could dunk a basketball, but he didn't go off for basketball. He was a district champ in wrestling. He could have played baseball, but instead he was a 2 or 3 gold medal winners in track. He used to. If you could see him, he was built like a fullback. In fact, he wore number 33. He was built like a fullback, and he maybe was about 6'1", weighed about 205, 210 pounds. But he ran the 100-yard dash, he threw the javelin, and he did the high jump. So if you can imagine those 3 different, they just all go together. But he was the guy. Once he graduated, he went to Oklahoma State. He only went there for 1 year, and then for some reason he got away from it, and he went out to California, and he wound up owning an island or something out there. But he did very well. But the trouble is, after, I think it was 4 years after he left Oklahoma State, because they had film on him, the Washington Redskins actually drafted him. Only seen him play when he was a freshman 4 years earlier, but he was probably the best athlete I've ever coached. And there's a bunch of good athletes that come to mind. Of course, the next big is Greg Skrepnak, being 6'7", 370, 360 pounds. He was fantastic. He was big, and they call him a gentle giant. But when he got mad, he really got mad. He went on to play at the University of Michigan, and then he played in the pros for the Oakland Raiders, and then the Carolina Panthers. So he's been around a little bit, and he's retired from there as well. But he's another one that, as I said, just a good kid. I had the opportunity to be with him when he was voted the outstanding lineman in the country. And we were feted at a dinner out at the Columbus, Ohio Touchdown Club. And lo and behold, the running back that year that was there with him was a guy you might know by the name of Emmitt Smith. He was there as a senior in high school. He was never out of the state of Florida until he flew there, him and his coach. And of course he went on to play at the University of Florida and so on, and ended with the Cowboy system and so on. I think he wound up with the Cardinals or something like that. But I got a chance to meet him, and at that dinner I got a chance to meet a bunch of the celebrities that I really like. A guy named Paul Hornung. He played football in Notre Dame. I got a chance to Dave Rigetti. He was a left-handed baseball pitcher for the Yankees. Bobby Rahal was a race car driver. All these guys. Rocky Blyer. I sat and had dinner with the head coach of Dallas Cowboy, Tom Landry's wife, because Tom Landry is also one of the speakers. So I got a chance see and meet all these people here. And most of that because, Greg, Greg's coach had to go along with him because he was still 17 years old. And we toured Ohio State and everything else too. And the guys from Ohio State, they were very upset that why can't we draft guys like him? And but there's so many guys. I don't want to eliminate so many people that I've had. Whether they're we played as a team, and that was the big thing. But with George Suda, he just a standout, top of my list. And of course Greg was there. But there's just so many good football players. So many, Alex Janoski, our quarterback, Santana John, another quarterback. We had so many good quarterbacks. We had so many good running backs and linemen that are overlooked. I don't want to miss any of them, so I'm not going to really get into it because, if they see this, they'll be upset that, well, hi, Coach, how come you didn't mention me? And I didn't want to do that, and because we had a lot of good games that we played as a team.
My name is George Suda. I had the pleasure of playing football at G.A.R. High School and being coached by Charlie Fick. The experience at G.A.R. had a major impact on my life. It immediately paid off on the field, but it also paid off many dividends later on in life. Playing for Coach Fick required the players to live by a certain rule, a code of conduct. Not following the rules was met with swift consequences, and believe me, you wouldn't have liked them. I remember bringing my report card to the coach's office every semester to show I was keeping my grades up. Not keeping them up remanded you to our study hall jail. It was all about football. It wasn't all about football. It was preparing you for what's next. That wasn't obvious to me and the rest of the players at the time. My dad had a lot of sayings, but my dad used to say, I wish I know now what I thought I knew when I was 16, 17, and 18, and I guess this is one of those situations. The night before a game, we had a mandatory 9 p.m. curfew. The coaches would ride the streets looking for players out after curfew, and if you were caught, you didn't play. It was all about following the rules and doing what was best for the team. Participating in multiple sports was also one of those things that was a requirement. It was a coincidence that Coach Rollins coached the track team and Coach Fick coached the baseball team, so it was a really good recruiting mechanism. However, this didn't just help the football team. It strengthened all the sports at G.A.R. The school benefited from this and was rewarded with multiple district championships in multiple sports. We were a force to be reckoned with. You were also required to put time into the weight room during the season, in the off season, and in the summer. Because the coaching staff and the booster club and Coach Fick running the summer fair, we probably had enough money that we had the best weight room in the county. This was a supervised process that you were required to go to even if you were playing multiple sports. This helped build an unbelievable sense of team. We played as a team both on the field and off the field. We won games that we shouldn't even have been in. Not because of talent, it was because we were in shape, we played as a team. When I drive by G.A.R., I remember the condition of the practice field we played on, if you want to call it that. It was dirt and cinders. Looking back, it was funny going to a JV or freshman game and seeing a dirt field that was lined with lime for the game. Brown dirt, white lines. I guess that built character. Besides dirt and cinders, there was glass on the field from people breaking bottles against the wall over the weekend. Coach Fick would organize the players to walk the field to pick up the glass prior to a practice, at least a Monday practice. I remember my junior year when Coach Fick and Coach Rollins had a rose painted on the wall by one of the art students. And underneath it, they printed in big letters, the Rose Bowl. It made the local press. It was kind of funny, but it didn't make the politicians too happy. I guess, oh well. Inevitably, when playing on that field, you would get tackled in the cinders and get a nasty brush burn with cinders buried in the wound. I remember we had this spray that they used to have around the locker room. It was called Nitrotan. And I remember Coach Fick spraying the wound with that green spray. It hurt like hell. The whole time he was doing it though, he had this diabolical laugh because he knew what it felt like. Getting sprayed by this was kind of like a badge of courage, or a badge of honor. I'd go to school the next day and have green stains coming up my arm. I've been asked many times about the games I played in high school. I've had people ask me what was the most memorable game that I played in. And to be honest, I doubt if I can remember many of the scores. So my most memorable game is one that probably had the most impact on my life, and it's probably not what you would expect. Like I've said before, Coach Fick was all about team. It was very well known that team was first. You win as a team, you lose as a team, no individuals. My senior year, I had college coaches come into the school and taking me out of class almost every day, trying to convince me to come play for them. I'd get multiple calls from college coaches at night at my house. It's easy to let that go to your head when you're 17 and 18 years old, and it did. I started to believe the press and the coaches that were trying to get me to come play for them. I started to feel and act like I was better than the other players on my team. Not a good thing. Every year we had a bonfire. This was a big deal for the football team. It was held at the Rose Bowl, not the one here in California. It was prior to the homecoming game. Surprisingly, Coach Fick benched me. I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. This was the first and only high school football game I didn't start in my entire career. The impact on me was undescribable. The game was against Bishop Hoban, and I was kept out of the game until just right before half. Coach Fick came over to me and talked to me during the game and had a little bit of discussion on my behavior, and then he sent me in. It was a long lesson I will never forget. It's all about team. The lesson I learned playing football at G.A.R. helped me throughout my entire life. I have been very lucky to work as a senior management position for most of my professional career. I managed large groups of people, and they were very successful, and I was very successful. Guess what? It's all about team. I was asked if I were going to define Coach Fick with one word, what would that one word be? And I guess that depends if we were in the middle of 3-a-days or not. But the one word I would describe Coach Fick with is steady. Steady in what he believed in, steady in what he expected, steady in how he dealt with issues, steady in how he expected us to behave. I want to thank Coach Fick for having such an impact on my life. Football is not forever. Many people aspire to play in the NFL. Not many make it. Friends of mine that have played in the NFL agree. The NFL doesn't mean National Football League. It means not for long. The lessons we've learned playing for Coach Fick follow you your entire life, not just on the football field. Coach Fick, thank you.
Things I had to, give up a little bit, so to speak. Things I had to sacrifice in order to be a coach and be a successful coach, because you can be a coach and still do some of the things that I wasn't able to do. But basically, it was a fact that I had a wife at home, and she was doing everything during football season. It's like, football's here, goodbye dear, and that's actually what it came down to, because I was gone. I would go for double seconds. I might start about 5:15 in the morning. I'd get up and be out the door and so on, and come home at lunchtime. She'd have a couple tomato sandwiches ready for me, and then I'd go back, and I'd be gone until about 7:30, 8 o'clock, if not longer, at night, every day for 2 or 3 weeks. So I miss all that and any interactions they had there. Plus, of course, my 2 sons, one that was playing against me, playing at Myers, Charlie, and one that was playing for me, Matthew. And we both, all 3 of us, we were fine when there was no football season going on. Like baseball, basketball, wrestling, we didn't matter about that. Everything was football in that case. And I can remember, with Charlie, it was tough. It was tough not only on myself, but also my wife, because I couldn't go see him play all the time. being a parent, you like to see your son play. Well, I couldn't do it. Well, my wife was in a situation where I would have been playing at the same time. G.A.R. is playing at the same time that Myers is playing. Well, where does she go? Well, I wanted her to go to see her son play. That's the big thing I wanted. And she did in most cases. Something, oh no, I'll go see you, and blah blah blah. That's fine. And with Matthew, playing for me, there's a whole different story. He was on my team. I saw him every day. I gave him a ride home from practice, and also it was good. And he worked hard. He was just the opposite, of the diminutive of Charlie, who was quite kind of big, where Matt was a little smaller, but he had the guts of a lion. He worked hard at what he did. He was able to run fast. He could catch the ball. In fact, they even put him in a quarterback after a while, and he did a good job there. And he was always thinking. So I was proud of him in that respect. I didn't get a chance to coach him all that much, but I did get a chance to coach my one son. Also, my daughter, she was by my side all the time. She really was, whether she was a statistician or she was in the stands. In fact, we have a picture of her standing, I think for the Scranton prep game. She was in the stands with all the fans and everything else. My dad's the coach, number one, and so on, so on. That meant so much. And some of the stuff, I'm sure her and my mother, or my mother-in-law, and my wife had to put up with, because not everybody is friendly to the coach. They don't know that oh, here's a coach's wife sitting right down here. They didn't know. And of course, Annie would not sit back. She would turn around and let them know, and Kelly would do the same thing. So it was pretty interesting. But the sacrifice I had to make in that respect, where I couldn't protect them at that time. I was down the field, they were up there, but they were able to do it by themselves. And people, I just have to talk about the fans. There's good ones, and they helped her. They helped them as well. But that was probably the biggest sacrifice that I really had to make. And I know, especially with Charlie being down at Myers, we used to do things like I'd come home, and he'd be just walking in the door, and I have a big folder with secret plays against Myers, and I'd put them on a table, and I'd walk away, and I'd see him walking by, and then just flip it open a little bit, because on the first page, I said, "Aha, I got you." There's nothing, and but it was just a matter that we had that going right along, and the day of the game, the people from Myers used to come down and decorate our house in blue and gold, and yet people from G.A.R. come down and take that down and put the blue and gray up. So it was pretty neat. It really was. And I said, with Matthew, I never got that much of an opportunity, because when I coached, I think it was 1 year I got a chance to coach him, and that was it. But I got a chance to see him play the following years, where I went to see all his ball games and everything else. And be a fan is what it was. Where I couldn't be a fan for Charlie, because I was always playing. And the trouble is, I did see all the ball games, because I got Mickey Gorham gave me all his films that I could look at and watch him play and so on. So that was good. And just a whole family thing. I said it's a small family, but the trouble is it extended further than that. Like I said, I talk about my wife and my two sons and my daughter, but also from there we talk about my mother, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-laws, their husbands, and so on. They followed me wherever we went. It's like I had an entourage. It was great. Like after the games that we won, they'd be down on the field and all, and it was really, really good. Taking pictures, and in fact, I didn't know it until after I think till she passed. My mother-in-law kept an album of all the newspaper clippings and everything else, and it was like about that thick, all the way back to when I first started as the head coach in 1980 to 1999 and so on. And she kept all those in pictures and whatnot, and it was really good. It was. I still have that book. I do look through it and so on. It's getting a little old and yellow and everything else, but it's good to look back on, see just some of the things that I said that at that time, and some of the predictions that we made. So it was really, really good. But other than that, as far as sacrifices. All my coaches did that too. They did the same thing, and the only good thing about them, they didn't have to suffer the brunt of, the press coming down on me, the fans coming down on me. But I have big shoulders, and I don't mind that whatsoever. And that's one thing I've learned through all the coaches that I've had throughout the years. Going back, Jack Jones, Bob Gimble, Jake Pyatt, Jim Garrett, Rolly Schmidt, all of them. They all taught me that you can't let that affect you, and I don't. And even the other coaches in that fraternity that we had, they were all good guys, and they still are. That are still alive. Most of them are still alive, and we see each other every now and then. But it's a whole different ball game right now. You talk about the high points of coaching G.A.R. football. Probably the lowest and saddest point I ever had was when I had to let the team know that I was retiring, that I couldn't come back the following year. And all this started partway through the season when after one ball game, I was feeling very, very bad. My heart was hurting. It was painful and everything else, and I did finally get up to school and everything else, but I couldn't stay there, so I had my son take me down to the old Mercy Hospital, which is Wyoming, Geisinger South right now, and they took me right in, and they had in fact the cardiologist that was on call just happened to be Hal Gabriel's ex-wife's boss, which was Dr. Bernardi. He came down and he looked at me. He said, "I'm going to need get a stent put in and so on." And I said, "Oh my God, I can't. I got to be coaching football." He says, "You're not going to coach this week." So they took me in and they eventually put a stent in. And I was feeling okay, but they had me so isolated when I was up the hospital. They put me in a private room. Nobody can talk to me or anything. I said, "I'm not a celebrity. All I do is get a stent put in my heart." But they wouldn't let me do anything. And Dino Galella, again, my assistant coach, and Freddie Klein and all, they got together and they put the team together for the following week. And said, I'm just not feeling well and everything else. I'm not going to be able to make it because we were playing Wyalusing that week. And they said they coached their asses off. That's just what they said. They just couldn't. They said we can't say enough. We didn't realize how much you actually did. As an organization and everything else. They got into it, and I went to the game, but I didn't go on a bus. I had to go in a car, and I was on the sidelines. Doc Moses, God bless him, he's trying to hold me back because you get screaming and yelling on the sidelines of a ball game and so on, especially the way things were going. And he said, "No, that's it. You got to slow down. You got to slow down." Okay. So then I went back to Bernardi the following week, and this is now about 7 games into the season. He says, "You got to retire right now." I said, "No." I said, I'm finishing the season. I don't give a damn what you say. I'm finishing this season out. You better. I said, "No, I'm telling you right now." Well, all right, you just take it easy. And of course I didn't take it easy, but still, I made it to just about the very end. And I was talking to my wife, Ann, about the situation, but I think this might be it for me, because she says, "I wish you would quit. I just wish, you just walked away back when he told you, 3 weeks ago." I said, "No, I think it's time for me to go now. I just can't do it anymore. I'm afraid something's going to happen on the field. I don't want anything to happen in front of anybody or whatever." So I made up my mind that I was going to retire. I told my family, that this is going to be my last game. If we lose, it's going to be my last game. Like we're in a playoff with Lake Lehman, and so I told them. I let my assistant coaches know as well, Dino and Freddie and so on, that when the season's over, I'm done. I'm done. So it got to the point where I felt halfway decent, but I just could not take that chance. You talk about the sacrifices I made before. Well, the sacrifice now is it's going to be my life, and if I do something and they don't have a father, or they don't have a husband, that just isn't right. So we did lose the game, and I said I tearfully told the players that I had to retire. I was done, and they were crying, and we were crying, and it was like right now. But it's just a situation where everything just stops cold, and I told them and everything else, and they all wish me well. And there's something in the paper about retirement and everything else. I try to let them know that it was not my idea to retire. You talk to Dr. Bernardi, he's my horse specialist. He's the one that told me I should have retired 3-4 games ago. So I made it to the end of the year, and I said I just can't do it anymore. So I just have to get into that retirement mode, and that'll give me an opportunity to see Matthew play football instead of just coaching him, and see him play and so on, and then get into my grandkids. They're that's part of my retirement plan, is I'm able to see my grandkids play their sports, like Hannah and Zoe. Freshman, they were field hockey players. I didn't understand anything about field hockey. In fact, my daughter Kelly, she played field hockey. I tried to watch one of her games. I had no idea what in the world was going on. I couldn't follow field hockey. I'm not an ice hockey fan or anything else, so I didn't know. But they were really into it, and Kelly was really into it. And then along comes Juliana, who's, when she was 3 years old, playing field hockey, and she kept playing, and the older girl sort of lost a little interest and so on, but she kept going, and now here she is going to ninth grade, going to probably start for Wyoming area, is one of the top teams in the state and so on. She goes to all these different sessions and so on throughout the state, or down in South Carolina, North Carolina, wherever it might be. She has her goal set that she wants to play Division I field hockey, which is fantastic. And I'm so proud of her that she's able to do that. But I also have a grandson, Brett, who lives down in Philly, who went to a trade school, but he was a wrestler as well, just as his son Charlie was. Brett is a wrestler as well, and he did well. In fact, he wound up going to nationals out in Iowa or something like that. Not on the NCAA, but on the other, whatever the tech school thing is. And also then my youngest grandson, Charlie, he's built like a tank, but he's a baseball player and loves baseball, loves Bryce Harper, loves the Phillies. He loves the Cleveland Browns, and he also wrestles. So he's fully rounded and everything else. Football, not right now. He doesn't want to do it. Like, he's built for football, but he just doesn't want to do it. He's more interested in baseball and wrestling than anything else. And it's good. He's a good student. So just like Juliana's a good student, and Brett was a good student, and my other grandchildren, Emily and Madison, and in fact, Madison, my other granddaughter, I was able to spend a lot of time with her because she was in karate. She wound up getting her black belt in karate, so I'm proud of that. And it's like they all had something special to do. Not except for the two Prutzman girls and Juliana. They're interested in field hockey, where Charlie he's more into baseball and wrestling, and I'm just like, I'm so happy I'm able to spend time with him as a retired person. The only thing I can't stand is standing on the sidelines of field hockey games and not yelling and screaming at officials, because I'd be embarrassed in my daughter when I get escorted off the field or something. I just can't stand that. So I'm just from old school. You're allowed to yell at people and they don't do a good job.
So I got a good story. that I think you guys will enjoy about my dad and me playing football for my dad. And when I say playing, I mean playing. I was literally the lane guy on kickoff, which means I just had to go down and stay in my lane and hope somebody ran into me. So it was about the 4th week of the year, and I was still the lane guy, and I wasn't getting any playing time, and I thought I was gonna, just because of who I was and, you know, my last name, basically. I was talking to my dad one Saturday night at dinner, and I said, "Hey, Dad," I said, "you gonna put me in?" I said, "You gonna give me any playing time?" And he looked at me dead in my face and said, "Who are you better than? Who are you stronger than? Who are you faster than?" And for some reason, I said, Thea DeGraff Reed, I'm faster than him. It was one of those things where, as you're saying it, you're wishing you could take it back. But I said it, and I don't know why I was like, all right. And he said, okay, we'll find out. Didn't get brought up again. Next day was Sunday. Monday was the JV game. I wasn't at practice. Totally forgot about it. Tuesday we do practice. We end practice. And as we're walking out, my dad says, "Hey, we have a challenge. I need number 8 and number 21. Take off your shoulder pads and toe the line." Number 21 thinks he's faster than number 8. And Thea, his look on his face, it was priceless. It was the same look I give my 8-year-old when he tells me he could beat me in wrestling. So me and Thea line up, and it's 40 yards up, 40 yards back. By the time we got to the first 40 yards and touched the line on the way back, Thea's running backwards, looking at me like, stupid. And I'm nodding my head like, yeah, shouldn't have done that. It was the most embarrassing moment I've ever had playing football. But it really taught me a lot about humility and to check myself, and that's a lesson my dad taught me. You know, the best players were always on the field. Nothing was ever going to be given to you. You had to work for everything you had. And that was his last year. I wanted to play all 3 years for my dad. I only got to play 1, but because he had heart problems and everything else. And a lot of people were upset that he wasn't going to be able to coach. But I'd rather 100 times over have a father than a football coach. So that really meant a lot to me that I at least got to play 1 year for my dad.
When I think about my earliest childhood memories, I remember my mom, I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. I remember my mom putting an itchy white sweater on me, a short blue skirt, bright white tights, put me in the back seat of her car, and we're driving, and I hear this weird noise, and I remember trying to look out the window, and all I saw was this green metal bridge, and I had no idea where she was taking me. So we pulled up to this big building. She grabs my hand. We walk into this big building, and I hear all these noises. I hear screaming, I hear cheering, I hear drums playing. And as a little kid, I was nervous because I had no idea what was going on. And then as we walked in further, I look up and I'm in this big, beautiful room, and I look at this ceiling, and it's like this stained glass ceiling. I see a stage where there's cheerleaders on the stage, and they're singing and they're dancing and they're doing cartwheels, and I still had no idea what was going on. And once we got seated and people started talking up on the stage, I saw a familiar face. And that familiar face came down to me and grabbed my hand, and I was excited because I was comfortable. He was my comfort. I went on that stage. I remember the guys high-fiving me. Big guys, like I had no idea. They looked like adults to me. Dancing with the cheerleaders. You know, just loving life at that point. And I did that for a long time in my life, and I didn't understand then why, but I was having a great time, so it didn't matter. So over the years, as I got older, we did this every Friday. And as I got older, I understood why we did it now. You know, it was my dad's job, and it was part of our family. So like I said, over the years, I was one of those people. I knew the cheers, I knew the songs, I knew the dances. We all grew up together. The football players were like my brothers. You know, my dad wasn't around a lot in the summertime going into Christmas time, and you guys all became my brothers. And once I got older, you know, I was going into 7th grade, I walked into Myers because that's where we lived. And I didn't have that feeling. I didn't have that feeling of excitement. I didn't have that feeling of I wanted to be there or I fit in. And I couldn't understand why. You know, I talked to my parents the first year and, you know, they're just like, it's just the 7th grade jitters. And then by the time my 8th grade year was over, I told them I couldn't do it anymore. I said, I hate it there. I don't belong. And then starting my 9th grade year, I remember the same noise I heard in my early childhood. And I looked over to my left and it was my dad. And he was driving me over that bridge. And that's when I realized. I looked at him and I told him that's where I needed to be. I was a kid on the hill.
So Charlie, biggest question of all, Mohawk or Grenadier?
Grenadier, all the way. I bleed blue and gray. I'm happy to answer that.
Well, I don't mind to slow down anymore. I don't mind the sound of my shoes on your floor. I don't mind selling out or playing cover song. Just as long as friends and family sing along. And I don't need more money or a faster car, no. Don't need a magazine to call me a superstar, no. I'm gonna take this little house and make a home. And then I'll never have to face my nights alone. 'Cause in my heart I hear you speak. And on my face I feel you breathe. Next to me, to by land, by air, by sea. And that is how it's supposed to be. Now, and that much I can say. Now. Pulling loaves of bread down from the shelf. And how rare it is that I stay up past 12. In the backyard we are going to start a garden. If that don't sound mighty good, I beg your pardon. 'Cause in my heart I hear you speak. And on my face I feel you breathe. Next to me, to by land, by air, by sea. And that is how it's supposed to be. Now, and that much I can say. Now, if they don't love us, we don't need them. Let's find our own brand of freedom. They don't love us, we don't need them. Well, let's find our own brand of freedom. Well, I don't mind to slow down anymore. I don't mind the sound of my shoes on your floor. Anymore.